Hello and welcome back to Nick Likes Magic. Welcome back to the What I Watched This Week series. Kind of a quick one this week. You can probably see by the runtime. I didn't watch a ton this week, mostly because of something I'll get into very shortly. I'm hoping to get kind of back on track this week with some more varied stuff. I believe it's the end of Cape Fear this week as well, so I'll give my sort of extended. I don't think I care too greatly about that show to make a standalone video, but I will give my sort of abridged take on the show, I guess next week, maybe. But I guess without further ado, we should get into this. This is a little out of order, but I'm not quite going to go in order of days for this video. The reason that this was sort of a light week was because I saw the Odyssey 3 more times after my first recording. The first one was IMAX, second was Regal's RPX, third was IMAX 70mm, and fourth was 35mm. Not much has changed since last week on my thoughts. I still think it's a phenomenal movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't think I enjoyed it any less on any, specific um, viewing. I think if I had to rank the four, I would probably go RPX, IMAX, 35mm, and then IMAX 70. And the reason for that is I could have just had a bad theater. I didn't think the sound on our 70mm screening was very good. IMAX screening was very good. And we were kind of packed into that theater like sardines. So after 2 hours, 2.5 hours, it kind of got a little bit suffocating in the theater. So I think that might have negatively impacted my experience viewing the Odyssey in that 70mm IMAX. As for sort of expanding on my thoughts on the Odyssey, um, I think while I think the movie is very nice looking, and I do think the picture in the IMAX 70 was really fantastic. I think it could have benefited. This is going to sound insane because it's already a 3 hour movie. I think it could have benefited from another hour. I think it actually could have used for a little more because I think while a lot of the discourse on Nolan's The Odyssey is sort of superficial, I do think that the pacing issues in the first half hour I think that's a legitimate criticism. It didn't really take away too much from me. There are a lot of characters with unique names that we don't hear anymore. Like there's no Kevins in this movie. The most normal name we get is Penelope, I think. So which is still a pretty, I don't want to say complicated name, but you don't see it very often. So I do think a little bit of exposition, and this is not new for a Nolan film, is necessary. And like I said, didn't really take away from my experience because even if you set aside that, there's still 2 hours and 20 minutes at minimum of really quality movies. I think a lot of people sort of get caught up in expectations. They've read the Odyssey or they've got their preferred retelling or adaptation of the Odyssey, and Nolan doesn't appeal to that specifically. So, oh, the Odyssey is the worst movie I saw this year. And maybe if you've just seen the Odyssey. If you want, and this goes with a lot of things, there's a Resident Evil movie coming out later this year. Resident Evil fans aren't happy about it um, because it's not just another retelling of a Resident Evil game. If you want the Odyssey in your preferred style, you have it. What's the point in watching or consuming a different adaptation? And it's okay, I guess, to compare a little bit, but what if you're not going to give it a chance, then just save yourself the time. And if you haven't seen the movie, stop posting online. The amount of people I see, I don't use Twitter, but I use Threads, and the amount of people I see there who are posting, altered images of the cast members, complaining about the casting or complaining about the monster design. you know, and they clearly haven't seen the movie. It's so dishonest. You don't have to like it as much as I do. I'm sure that a lot of people like it more than I do. I'm sure a lot of people don't like it as much as I do. But for my money, it's one of the best movies of the year, and it will probably, you know, rake at the Oscars next March. I, for my money, Matt Damon should get a nomination for Best Actor. I think Samantha Morton should get a nom, and Anne Hathaway, and Robert Pattinson. And I don't even think I mean, I'm definitely forgetting, other phenomenal performances. There are things to criticize about this movie. Like I said, I think the pacing is wonky at the beginning. I think Tom Holland's performance is maybe a little flat. But I think it makes up for it in so many different ways. It's so impressive in its practical effects, in its scale. It's so cool that all of these A-list actors can get together for only $250 million and make something that looks the way that it does, all practically. And you see a lot of comparisons to other films. They left something out, but does that make this any less of a wonder of an epic story? No, I don't think it does. I think Nolan's storytelling, I think how he figures out a way to mess with the time in this retelling is so unique. And I think, I could go on about this all day, and I won't, but my rating for this movie. It hasn't wavered throughout any of my viewings, and it probably won't. I think I'm gonna get back on track this week. But Odyssey 5 stars and the little heart. It really is, one of those movies, you know that that we get maybe one or two a year that I think is just incredible and just worth seeing in theaters 100%. I don't think a DVD version or even a 4K Blu-ray will do this justice. I don't care if you have a 100-inch TV, you need to watch it on the, you know, 7 stories wide, 5 stories tall, 70 millimeter theater. It really is that good. I'm gonna stop yapping about it. We're gonna get to the next thing. We're gonna get to one of the two movies I watched this week. The first movie that I watched this week, not named The Odyssey, is The Holdovers. Was The Holdovers. Um, and I think this kind of goes without saying. It was very good. Paul Giamatti, I think, is going. He's always been a solid actor. I can't remember him necessarily in many things off the top of my head, and it's 4:30 in the morning as I'm recording this. So, but he's got the debut coming out later this year in 2026 that I'm excited to go see. And I think he is just one of those solidly consistent guys right now. Dominic Sessa, I think, has a bright future in this industry. He's got the Anthony Bourdain biopic coming out later in this year, which I am thrilled to go and see. And frankly, I think this movie is going to turn into one of those, every year watch over the holidays kinds of movies for me. There it's not like a feel good. It kind of is towards the end, but um, I don't really know. There's not really much I can get into. I'm trying to be spoiler free, or very much so spoiler free in these videos now. As I've mentioned in the past, I don't really want to get into specific plot points or storylines in this movie. But Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sessa's riffing in this movie, their dynamic back and forth conversations are very engaging, and they're very natural. I don't have the writer of this movie on hand, but whoever it is, they did a great job, and the performances from Giamatti and Sessa are nothing short of incredible. This movie makes you feel all kinds of feelings. The end scene, after everything's all said and done, is very wholesome. It's very warm. It's a very warm movie, which is weird because it takes place over Christmas. Um, and I think I'm glad it's made. I'm glad it's out there because I enjoyed the hell out of it. So the Holdovers gets a 4.5 and a heart for me. I think it's going to be just an all-time, you know, bum the family out over the holidays movie in the future. The final movie that I watched this week with my fiance was Little Brother, starring John Cena, Eric Andre, and Michelle Monaghan, which I thought was funny. I'll get out of the way. I just gave it a heart. I didn't rate it out of 5. It is going to be on my end of year list because it came out this year and it was released on a major streaming platform. It doesn't really have the draw that I would like it to, but I'm not going to like punch down on it or anything. I thought it was funny. I laughed quite a bit at mostly the Eric Andre bits. I know he is sort of the comic relief in this movie, but there's a couple of one-liners that really got me chuckling. There's some pretty, I wouldn't say iconic, but very funny. I don't know why I even like insinuated it iconic, but this is a classic sort of Netflix slop comedy with a bunch of recognizable names. And, am I going to remember it a week from now? Maybe not. I kind of don't really remember any specifics of it now, but it's got all the classic summer comedies, some pretty funny scenes, some hysterical lines, and some things that got, a chuckle out of me and my fiance. And then there was also, there's the John Cena says something hurtful halfway through and has to redeem himself. And I don't have any like, scathing complaints of it. It's not all dick jokes, which is good. A lot of it is a lot of the comedy for me was in Eric Andre's performance. He's just very naturally charismatic when it comes to this kind of thing. And I mean it's just not a very notable movie. It is funny to me if you like sort of comedy slop. And I say that not necessarily with a negative or positive or negative connotation or anything like that. That's I think just a good fitting genre for it that I probably won't watch again. But I enjoyed it enough. So I didn't give it anything out of 5. I will rank it. Like I said, it's not a so bad it's good, but I just gave it a heart. I liked it. Finally, um, we are starting our Cape Fear Hatewatch 3 minutes section of the video. I thought episode 9 was all right. It was, I think, the strongest episode we've talked about in about a month, I would say. I like that there are a couple of different conflicts that are being set up to be resolved in. I wasn't sure. I don't care about it enough to Google this. I wasn't sure if there was only going to be 10 episodes. But I think after watching the 9th episode that they've set up a lot of things to be finished in episode 10, so I'm confident in saying this is the last one without doing any Googling. I think that it's interesting that we don't know what happened to Zach. I think it's interesting that Tom is sort of contemplating ending things. And I like that Anna, obviously she sliced her hand open and appeared to escape sort of the Cape Fear setup that Crystal and Max kind of got her in. And we really haven't tied up the Max Katie daughter loose end. They're setting up a CCH Pounder thing, whose name is Noah. Noah? I'm realizing I'm using all the character names, and then I just said CCH Pounder. It is. I am certainly the most interested in this show that I have been in a couple of weeks. I am glad that we're kind of past the whose kid is this anyway thing. And I'm hoping we don't revisit it in the finale. I'm hoping it's just straight up balls to the wall. All these storylines are going to close up kind of thing, because it does kind of seem like the Bowdens are in, regardless of how this ends, in sort of an unwinnable situation. They're going to either have to kill Max, and I haven't seen the original Scorsese Cape Fear or anything to do with it. I, I don't know. Although my fiance has and said it's nothing like it, so maybe they're going to do something completely different. The campy editing is still gone. The tone, the camera choices are all, we're back to being flat. I'm not very happy with how this show turned out. Um, I will say though, up until this point, the last couple of weeks, I have been excited to be done with it. And while I would say I'm ready to be done with it still, I am intrigued for the finale. I am hoping that they stick the landing. That's all I'll say about that, because I could hate on this show for a long time if you give me credit or if you give me time. And Javier Bardem, my biggest issue with it at this point is that in the first couple episodes, Javier Bardem is sort of this, you know, imposing figure, right? You know that he has a reason to not like the Bowdens, but he's coming off a certain way. He's kind of integrating himself in their lives in different ways. But now he is just so over the top, obviously evil, and obviously trying to pull a bunch of strings to get the Bowdens back for what he perceives they put him through. But that's, I mean, there's no allure to that character anymore. I just know now he's going around and intimidating people. They keep alluding to, oh, he can make people do what they want. And then there's the prison scenes with, his brain kind of shutting down or whatever, like implying that there's some supernatural capability to him. But that hasn't been shown in the last couple episodes. He just kind of gets people in predicaments. So, yes, I know I said I'll stop talking about it. So I will stop talking about it now. But I will give a little bit more of an in-depth sort of season recap next week after the finale. Thank you all so much for watching this abridged episode of what I watched this week. Um, I hope to sort of get back on a more consistent schedule with my movies coming up this current week. Maybe I'll try to watch a lot of them so I have an extra long episode next week, or at least try to get back sort of in the swing of things. I again haven't forgot about the Letterboxd ratings. I really, at this point, I have the ratings down, kind of what I want to say, but I want to make sure that the format of the video is enjoyable. I don't want to just be rambling about it because it has more of a specific focus to it than just, oh, this is what I watched this week. So I want to make sure that I do it, in an engaging and interesting enough way. So it's coming. I know I haven't forgot about it. It'll be out whenever. So if you like what you hear, drop a like or maybe even a subscribe. Both are free, and I appreciate both. And I will talk to you next week. Goodbye.